One.
Hey man, it's good to be with you again. My name is Cisco Walker. I'm an evangelist here in the International District, and it's a great pleasure to be here with you tonight. I have a very good friend of mine. This is Rocky, and I've known Rocky since I met Rocky when I was 18 years old. So some of these things we're going to be talking about tonight. Both of us, we know a lot about the subject matter, and we've experienced a lot about it as well. Tonight I want to talk to you just for a moment about 1 Corinthians 6, chapter 6 in verse 12. It says, "All things are lawful for me, but all things are not helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any." And what we're going to try to talk about tonight is the subject of marijuana, or weed, or pot, however you would like to say it. Marijuana is here to stay. So where do we go from here, right? And the purpose of these videos is to discuss difficult questions. But, you know, the difficult questions are also very important questions. And we have to get to the bottom of these things. You know, some of these questions and some of these things that we're going to discuss here tonight, you know, they're like the elephant in the room. And especially for evangelicals, because evangelicals, they know that pot is legal now. They know that pot is used for medicinal uses. But sometimes evangelicals, they just kind of want to stick their head in the sand and pretend that they can go back to Ozzie and Harriet, that they can go back to, you know, Leave It to Beaver and you know, Andy Taylor. But like, we can't go backwards anymore. We have to go forwards, and pot has been legalized. So where do we go from here? The purpose of these videos is also, it's to educate. It's to break down stigmas that exist around people that smoke marijuana. It's also to raise awareness, right? Because just because marijuana is legal, there are pluses to that, but there are also minuses to that. And we don't exactly know what all of those things are yet, because for the state of New Mexico, it's very new territory, right? Did you ever think that you would see the state of New Mexico legalize pot?
I hope so.
Yeah?
I mean, I always hope so, but I mean, it's about time they did, I think, you know.
Yeah. And you've always you've always been kind of a marijuana like advocate, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, and you feel that it's helped you and it's helped people, and
Absolutely.
okay,
You know,
good.
but by the same token too, like, you know, if you're not in a place where you can handle that too, where, you know, then you shouldn't mess with it either. You know, you just got to know when, you know.
Okay, yeah. Just speak loud. And we'll pick it up.
You speak loud.
So, and you know, another purpose of these videos is we want to help evangelicals be well versed in the current issues at hand. You know, evangelicals, Christian people, you know, you have to know a little bit about what's going on with the drug problem, like how the drug, you know, what kind of drugs there are, how are they changing. You know, we can't just stick our head in the sand, because pot is here to stay and it isn't going to go anywhere. And I don't have a definitive yes or no answer for you on that. That isn't the point of these videos, but the point of these videos is that we would raise some awareness, that we would educate people. You know, and we've talked about things like that. We've talked about homelessness, and we've talked about drugs. And tonight we're going to be discussing the legalization of marijuana here in the state of New Mexico. I have here, interestingly enough, Rocky, a bullet point that says from reefer madness to recreational legalization.
Yeah.
And it seems like we've gone from one extreme to the other extreme.
I wouldn't call it an extreme.
Okay.
I wouldn't call legalization an extreme. You know, I mean.
Well, go ahead. And
I think extreme would be more of not legalizing it and making it making it a controlled substance,
Okay, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's accurate. That's accurate. We were talking about Reefer Madness, right? The old black and white film, right? And Reefer Madness was a film that demonized or vilified marijuana consumption, right? Reefer Madness was made in 1936, released roughly around 1937, 1938. Reefer Madness was not only influenced by, but also funded by a church group to stress the dangers of marijuana use.
creating propaganda just to create an uprising.
Okay, so
against it.
that's interesting. So you feel that Reefer Madness became more of a piece of propaganda?
Absolutely, it was.
Okay. Well, I do, I can understand to some degree the church, probably because of their ignorance, probably because they didn't really know a lot about what they were talking about, because sadly and unfortunately, the church likes to bury its head in the sand with current issues. So maybe they were trying to do the right thing by releasing this film, but if you watch it today in 2024, it's like completely ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, and it even in the 70s it gained a new life as an unintentional satire for marijuana, right?
Absolutely, it did it.
And you just saw pieces, you watched probably bits and pieces of it lately. What did you think after not probably seeing it for 10 or 15 years?
It was hard to even watch.
Okay, how come?
It was just so ridiculous, poor acting. I mean, just the way the effects that they said it had on the people, it was like, I don't know, man. It was like not even close. You could tell that they'd known everyone had smoked pot that wrote that.
Yeah, and Reefer Madness was considered a cult classic, right? It was ranked among one of the worst films ever made. I think Planet Nine from Outer Space, Ed Wood, was number one. Reefer Madness would be number two. You said something about snakes.
Snakes on a plane, that was pretty bad too.
Yeah, you said that one was that one was just absolutely terrible. But as you talked about, it was so ridiculous because the film seems to dogmatically suggest that cannabis consumption leads to a number of repugnant crimes, and those crimes included rape,
violent psychosis,
murder, insanity, hallucinations, suicide. Right? Remember the girl runs and she jumps out the window and kills herself and so that's kind of, at least with pop culture, right? That's I feel that there are others, but that is one of the starting points where we really begin to see marijuana and what marijuana does. Marijuana used to be taboo. It used to be like something that jazz musicians did, right? I mean, it was something that lowlifes did.
But it's been around forever too,
Okay. Yeah, it has.
So, I mean, I think it's just society trying to control the way people feel, and think.
Okay, yeah.
I just think it was ridiculous in the first place. I mean, I've been saying since I've known you, 30 some years, that it needs to be legal,
Yeah, exactly. Well,
what's the worst thing you're going to do? Eat up all the Cheerios and the Fruit Loops in the cupboard,
Yeah.
I really don't, I mean, nowadays, granted, it's getting stronger and, and they're making all the wax and all that stuff. And I think that's getting a little bit too much for some, but, for others.
And how strong is the wax? Is it pretty potent?
I think I think it's just the same principle. It's like the crack of marijuana. You're just really, you're just trying to get as much of the potency as you can.
Yeah, like an instantaneous euphoria, right, from the pot itself.
It's crippler, I mean, and then there's people that can smoke it all day, but I'm good.
Yeah, if you smoked it all day, you'd be on the couch, right?
For sure. I mean, I think that's where a problem could come in. It starts coming in because there's no motivation behind, You
Yeah.
don't have no motivation. It does fry your brain,
Right.
I think, but
And that's interesting that that you use that terminology that particularly with the wax, but that the wax does fry your brain, because a lot of people they'll deny that. They'll say, "Oh no, it doesn't. No, it has all these wonderful things. It has all these wonderful qualities." But like
your motor skills slow down. Your thought processes aren't the same.
Right. And that's why I appreciate you being on here, because I know that you are an advocate for marijuana.
Yeah.
I know that I know that it's helped you. It helps you with PTSD. But like, what I admire is that you have enough. You will be honest and you will show two sides of the coin. You'll say, yes, it has these things, but it impairs the motor skills. It impairs you.
Well, I think just like anything, it has to be used like in moderation. If you overindulge in anything, it could be chocolate, it could be coffee, it could be weed, it could be cocaine. It doesn't matter. Once you start overindulging in it, and then it starts to become a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. We got some simple facts about recreational legalization. Bill Richardson signed a bill in 2007 that opened the door, so to speak, for medical marijuana. June 29th, 2021. Cannabis in the state of New Mexico was legalized for recreational use. This piece of legislation was signed into action by Michelle Lujan Grisham. Right? Okay, now this is interesting. To this date, more or less, the state has recorded more than 21 million transactions with $75 million in cannabis taxes going to the state general fund and the local communities. Right, and
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, yeah, well,
but I mean, there is a dispensary on every corner. But I mean, we'll see how long it takes for it. Like,
then why are our roads still wrecked?
Why are we the 50th in education for kids in 4th grade?
That's interesting, because you know what, a lot of people like they got
from lack of the teachers. I know teachers that they try their hardest to do everything. It's just
so you're saying, where's all this money that's been generated according to these facts? You're saying that there's all this tax money coming in because of the legalization of marijuana, but you, as a Joby citizen, Joby nobody, so to speak — I'm a Joby nobody, everybody is, unless you're in politics — you're saying you're not really, at least from your perception and what you can visibly see, you're not really seeing fruit of all of this money generated.
Yeah, I just see lots of small businesses trying, which, I guess it's got to start somewhere too, but,
Yeah.
But we lost a lot of businesses because of COVID, and just like destroyed this town, it seems like.
Yeah.
I was gone for a few years. I came back, and it's heartbreaking.
You said it broke your heart that Albuquerque
I love this town.
was a wreck.
To see it like this, it's just brutal.
Yeah. This is one thing I have here in my notes. It says, at least with legalization, one knows what one is getting.
Sure,
right? That's
absolutely.
one of the pluses that I see with legalization, because at least you know what you're getting. If you buy some pot on the street, there was a time in our lives where, like, we would look forward if we had pot that was laced. Like, we wouldn't care what was on it.
Yeah.
But when you start having kids, and when you start, nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, and like, you start to kind of think differently, and like,
absolutely you do.
And like, I would much rather have my kids not smoke pot, but if they did smoke pot, I would feel more comfortable with them buying it from a dispensary, because
absolutely.
I know that it's not going to have K2 on it. It's not going to have spice on it. It's not going to have something. It's not going to have fentanyl in it.
Right. Well, it's
right.
It's a young market and young business, too, with it too. So it's good. It's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
It's
just starting out. Yeah. That's a good point. So
we don't know that, some little hole in the wall dispensary,
Oh, is it breaking the law by putting things
I mean, I think by law-
But they're held by the federal regulation standard. So there is some strength in that. There is some safety in that. Of course,
they just got to figure out how to mandate it, I guess.
yeah, because those things can always be skirted, and there's always going to be people that are going to break the law, and there's always going to be people that are going to, unfortunately, there's malicious and there's deviant people
and,
out there.
Yeah, and for the most part, the people that really want this to work are the one that do own the dispensaries. I think they try hard and they do the best that they can.
Yeah, yeah.
We just don't want the big old corporations to come start getting involved and stuff.
I think
That's where we're going to start getting stomped on.
that's inevitable, though, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is.
I mean, okay, 5 years from now, do you think you're not gonna have dispensaries scattered all over the city?
now it's gonna be like little vape shops. It used to be the vape shops 10 years ago.
The head shops.
Vape shops, like when the vaping first started coming out,
Uh-huh,
they were on
uh-huh.
every corner. And now you got a few here and there, but
Yeah. So these little dispensaries that have just popped up, on
and
every
a lot
corner,
of
like,
people don't know how to run a business either, and that's what's going to kill them too. They don't know how to keep it going.
yeah, they're not gonna
And
last.
I just don't really think that there's that much weed in the state of, because I think really you're supposed to. The only weed you can sell in a dispensary in New Mexico has to be grown in New Mexico.
Right.
And I just don't think there's enough weed for all the different dispensaries that are out there to just sustain a business, for years and years.
Okay. In your opinion, how has recreational legalization of marijuana changed the black market? Is there still a black market for pot?
Not really. Who wants to buy, like say, who wants to buy an ounce for $200 when you can go get one for 50 and that's better?
So
In general, I'm not saying that's
yeah.
what's going on, but I mean that's really
yeah, because I remember a
the black
time
market can't keep up with the legal
Yeah.
with legal weed.
because of the product, right? And
Right.
because of the quality of the product, right?
Yeah, I mean.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's gonna. I mean, there's still people out there who sell weed, but it's just.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth their time or money. It's not worth a felony, that's for sure. I mean, not that would be a felony, but
Yeah, to fool with it. Yeah.
it's not worth it.
All right. So now we're gonna get into kind of the fun stuff. Okay. We've tried to give you the facts, and we just want to remind everybody that the secular people, Christian people, marijuana is here to stay. So like we've got to start looking at it. We've got to start thinking about it. We've got to start planning for the future, and that's really what this is about.
Yeah.
Now remember that these answers that I'm going to give and that Rocky are going to give, these are subjective answers.
Totally opinion.
Yeah, these are opinions. We're not doctors, we're not psychologists, but we are people that have.
We could be wrong on some of them.
Yeah,
Who knows?
they're we have sense, and so we're going to get into these.
Just try to keep an open line of communication is all we're trying to create, really.
Yeah, exactly. Now, is marijuana a gateway drug in your opinion?
No.
Okay.
Bad decisions is your gateway drug.
Okay.
I mean, that's like saying, is a piece of gum a gateway drug to, a chocolate cake? I don't know, man. It's like, is beer a gateway drug to cocaine? No, it's just all poor decision making if you're going to use. The problem is the addictive behavior. It's not and the decision
Good.
making.
Yeah, exactly. Studies have shown, Rocky, that a majority of individuals who use or experiment with marijuana, they do not necessarily move on, so to speak, to illicit street drugs. Not everybody that smoked pot is going to wind up doing cocaine. Not everybody that smoked pot is going to wind up out here in the international district
Absolutely.
smoking fentanyl, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's not that cut and dry.
it's not at all. No,
Right,
I
okay.
don't believe it's a gateway drug. I think, that those are good. If you're going to end up doing cocaine or meth or fentanyl or whatever the heck it is, you are destined to do that anyway because you have a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay. Now, personal experience, I didn't start with pot. I started with alcohol. From alcohol, I went to pot. From pot, I rapidly progressed to cocaine, meth, psychedelic drugs, and then eventually, by the time I was 20 years old, I was doing intravenous drugs
Sure.
at the age of 20. So like technically, like I guess I could be lassoed and kind of corralled into that Ronald Reagan box of
Well,
gateway,
yes.
because isn't that where that terminology came from?
Yeah, but I mean, I think they just want to say, well, what starts it all? What starts it all? And back when that came out, they didn't really have as many studies into
Yeah.
the causes of drug addiction.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
didn't consider it a disease back then. They didn't realize that
Yeah.
there's a chemical imbalance in people's brains, and they just doesn't fire the same way as normal people.
Right. Now, gateway, most people believe that as it concerns drug addiction, environment plays a major factor as it concerns becoming a drug
so.
addict.
I think environment has a lot to do with it. Sure.
Okay. Now, what about genetics? You mentioned genetics.
Absolutely. I think absolutely. My mom was an alcoholic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And some would say
I'm
the
an
apple
alcohol-
doesn't fall far from the tree,
I'm
right?
an alcoholic and a drug addict my whole life. I'm sober now, but
Yeah, yeah. But you've had your own. You've wrestled with your
I
own
lost
demons and
my
problems.
daughter. I lost my daughter to an overdose. So I mean, it can be true. Like it very well could be genetic and hereditary.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, what about accessibility?
I think plays a bigger part in it.
Okay,
if it's
so-
always in your face, you're going to be destined to try it.
Yeah. So environment, accessibility, and genetics, they're all factors as it concerns any kind of bad behavior, but it can also fall into marijuana use as well. I know a lot
Sure.
of kids. I remember me growing up as a kid, being around the adults and like, pot was taboo back then, but like
It
my
wasn't
first
for
memories,
me.
I remember
As
it.
far back, I can remember people smoking weed around me as far back as I can remember.
Yeah, and do you think
In
that
the
that had
70s,
and did that have an impact on how you grew up and how, did you want to be like them in a sense?
I guess maybe kinda, sure.
Okay, and so
because I mean, I did grow up like them.
yeah, so that could fall into environment, right?
Sure.
Like
I think the environment plays a big part of it. I mean, I think one of the biggest part, that people of like any kind of addiction is the lifestyle that you live.
Yeah, sure. Now, to be fair, I think that the question is marijuana a gateway drug? It doesn't have a dogmatic or a one-size-fits-all answer. You can't just paint it with a broad brush.
No, you
can't. You can't. People do though. People do. And
Because then you'd have to say, is it good weed or bad weed? Bad weed, no one wants it. It's not gonna,
yeah,
So
yeah,
like,
yeah. And that's kind of what some of this and that's kind of what some of these conversations are about. Is that for some people, they may feel that it was a gateway drug for them. Others, it may not. I believe, like you do, I believe that genetics, I believe that accessibility, and I believe that environment.
Making.
Yeah, poor decision making, and I also
And
believe
that helps, and a lot of that has to do with too, with like parenting.
Okay, go ahead and elaborate on that for a
I mean, I
minute,
think.
because I agree with that. Yeah.
Better parenting. Maybe you might with better parenting. Who's to say you wouldn't make better decisions, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't want to like say if you are a better parent, your kids are because that's not true either. But I think with better parenting, you have a better opportunity for your kids to grow up and make better decisions. And kids learn by watching more than by hearing what you tell them.
Yeah, and they're more observant than we think they are, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's discuss accessibility, potency, and tolerance, right? So accessibility or easy access is a major factor as it concerns experimentation, addiction, and chronic substance use. Now, this is a question for you. Does it concern you that in certain areas of the city, dispensaries seem to be on every corner?
Not really. You still got to. I mean, it could be next to a school. Those kids aren't gonna be able to go in there and get it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's another question.
It's just people trying to, start a business.
Yeah. Now, but okay, you mentioned that now with young people, but will similar problems arise like they arose with underage drinking. You might, like, I remember when I was a 16-year-old kid, we had
Man,
adults.
Will you get me a gram? One of those things.
Where you'd find an adult, some guy or some old woman or something, and they'd go into the liquor store and they'd get you, Night Train or Mad Dog 2020,
2020,
yeah, Colt 45, yeah, because you're a kid, right? But I know there's always going to be a loophole. I know there's always going to be a way for people to skirt the issue and get what they want.
We'd be
but
silly to think that those kids don't already have a way to get their own weed.
Yeah.
For the most part,
Yeah.
I was able to get weed ever since I could remember too, as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I remember being I remember being a kid, and I'm not glorifying this. I'm not telling people to do this, but this is just my story. This is BC, obviously before Christ, but I remember that there was a summer where I had a paper route, and I could buy my own pot, and I thought I was a man because I could buy my own bags of weed, and I remember that they had the Sunday paper, and they would bring the paper. I lived in a rural area, but they would bring the paper at midnight, and I would sit there and I'd watch Headbangers Ball, and I'd smoke pot, and then I'd go out in the darkness and I'd throw my newspapers, and I thought I was a big shot, because I made my own money. I could buy my own bags of grass, and I thought that I had arrived. It was a big deal for yeah. I mean that was a big deal for me,
right? You used to say you hadn't arrived.
Yeah. So
you didn't know any better or any worse.
Yeah. But I think but I think one of the dangers, right? One of the dangers of the legalization of marijuana is that you always have to think about kids, because
Absolutely.
because even Christ would say,
that goes back to bad decision making.
Yeah.
I mean, you absolutely should think about the kids and not leave it around if you have toddlers and
Yeah.
don't have that. I mean, that's just, if you have kids around and your kids can get into your weed, that's bad parenting, bad decision making, and that's just plain bad.
Yeah. Well, and it's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable, and there should be consequences.
Yeah, and I remember going in high school. I remember my years in high school. First period of the day, I was stoned every day in high school. And you know what? I couldn't do algebra. There was certain things that I couldn't do because I know now from what I've learned about through educating myself, looking into pot, like you said, the motor skills, the learning things, they do affect kids' minds, especially when they're young.
When they're young and they're moldable and growing.
Yeah, and I think that is a dangerous thing. And obviously, marijuana is here to stay. So what are we going to do about it? We have to, we have to always remember that, and we always have to try to figure out ways where we can keep the doors of communication open, where you can talk to your kids, because if they're stoned every day and they've got math first, second period, not all of them, but a majority of them, it's going to hinder their learning process.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's a big problem.
Sure.
Yeah. So now, okay, that's accessibility. So we've talked a little bit about accessibility. Now I want to talk a little bit about potency, and I just have some movie quotes here. Obviously, as it concerns pot, this is not your granddaddy's shotgun, Private Cowboy, right? This kind of pot today is genetically engineered.
It's like the Robo pot.
Yeah, this new pot is not like Ronald Reagan's Paraquat pot or the
Colombian
dirt in the
gold.
Frisbee that you used to have under the couch when I was 18-year-old, the dirt in the Frisbee.
Yeah.
How has the pot, okay, so, let's get in.
Swagged to the dank.
So let's get in the time machine and let's go all the way back to Cornell, right? Right. I remember the first time I met you. I remember we came into your house, and the guy was with. He wanted to get stoned, and he goes, "Let's go to this guy's house because I know he's got some pot." And you were asleep, I think. And the first thing he did is he reached under the couch and pulled out the Frisbee, and the Frisbee had pot and zigzags and a pipe in it. And but how has the quality and the potency of the pot changed from?
Well, you couldn't smell it then.
Yeah, okay.
Now you'd walk in, and if that was the case, you'd smell it.
So the potency, like what
Oh,
kind of what are we talking about? Like how strong?
I mean, I think it's, man, 20 times stronger than back in the day. You know, when you first got the good old skunk weed back in the day, it was pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's like.
But compare it now.
Compare it now, man. It's just like, I don't know, man. Weed nowadays is way stronger.
Okay.
It's like
okay.
scary stronger.
Okay, and it's interesting that you use that analogy, use that scary. Yeah, it can. So.
It's, I mean, I still think weed's better than that. What was that other stuff that everyone used to smoke and get out of the dang at the gas stations? That.
Oh yeah, the solve.
Yeah,
yeah.
Salvia or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that was way more aggressive than even the dankest of weed.
Yeah, because people would smoke. Well, they didn't know what it was. It was chemicals. You never knew what it was.
Yeah.
People would smoke that. They'd take their clothes off. They'd try to eat cinder blocks, right? They'd jump off buildings and stuff because like you never knew like what kind of reaction that you were going to have to that.
I swore I never would again, and I hadn't.
Yeah, I smoked it one time too, and I felt like I fell off the edge of the earth, and I hated it.
Most aggressive high that came on out of any drug that I've ever done.
Yeah, and you've probably
done them all.
You've done PCP. How did it compare to PCP?
The salvia was way worse.
That's pretty bad. It's PCP angel dust is pretty bad.
Yeah. You know.
All right. So.
But anyway, that's sorry. You mean?
Yeah. No, that's all right. So it says marijuana. There's studies that show that marijuana potency's tripled since the 1970s.
Absolutely.
Marijuana's potency has always evolved, so to speak, and gotten stronger and better by most standards. Right now, you have
as well it should. I mean, everything has progressed from technology and society. So I mean, that should progress by
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and so this isn't your granddaddy's swag pot that he's growing
out in the tomato plants out back.
Yeah. This new pot is not your buddy's homegrown pot that just gives you a headache.
Man, it's a lot of work. It's it takes a lot of money to grow. It's like you gotta like baby it.
Yeah.
It takes really more than one person, to do it like effectively. If you're gonna have a lot of plants, you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah. So now there's new terminology. There's flour.
Yep.
Pre-rolls.
Yeah.
Wax.
I mean, what's a pre-roll? Just someone rolled a joint for you.
Gummies. Know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I talked to a friend of mine, and I just want to mention him for just a minute. Brother Corey, and Corey told me that he kind of explained that the flour is the best part of the bud. And the pre-rolls or whatever
everything that just
doesn't make the cut, right?
Yeah,
like
it's the swag of the dank.
Yeah. And then the wax is like the
terpenes and all that stuff. And there's a whole bunch of different things for it that they call it. It could be wax, and then there's different ways of processing it.
And
you got the wax, you got shatter, you got.
And what about the gummies?
That's just edible. Edibles,
And isn't the euphoria different? It's like a body.
It's a whole different. Yeah, it's totally different. I think gummies edibles is probably the best way to go.
Okay, what if you're having pain with your back? Will gummies help you?
Sure, but if it has the right, you really want like this. I guess it'd be the CBDs in there, But
yeah.
There's different strains that do different things for different ailments.
Okay, all right.
I think that's the key. I'd like to see a dispensary open up, that sold their strains of weed for the different ailments of people. One for glaucoma, one for Crohn's disease, one for back pains, one for anxiety, PTSD. There's different strains that they know do better.
They have a medicinal, a medicinal element to them, right? Because remember that the point of this program is to not vilify or demonize pot. There are certain ailments that marijuana can help people with, And
you gotta learn to use it as a tool, not a crutch. I think is one of the bigger problems. Once it becomes a crutch.
Yeah, now
we probably shouldn't even be doing it.
Okay. I love that because you use the word crutch. So now we're moving into tolerance, right? One builds a tolerance or a proverbial resistance to marijuana, just like one does with other substances.
Absolutely.
right?
Sure.
Because I remember, right before I got saved, drinking was destroying my life. So I wanted to quit drinking. I had quit drinking on my own. You would tell me when I was 19 years old, I wasn't even 21 yet. You're like, you're a bad drunk. You're like, it doesn't go good with you.
Yeah.
You know, don't come over here if you're going to be like that. I mean, I remember like there were times I couldn't go to your house because
you were a bad drunk. You're just a jerk.
You're
just ornery and belligerent. You know?
Yeah, because when I drink, I turn into the devil. You know, not the literal devil, but like when I drank, like it changes me because, and I believe that a lot of that is genetics.
And the anger that's in you comes out. You know that people suppress. I think a lot of it comes out.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So, but I remember that trying to get sober, right? And I was going to the AA rooms. I was going to the 12-step rooms, and I was on the marijuana maintenance plan. You've heard that old terminology, right?
California sober.
Yeah, the California sober. Yeah, and I was smoking pot about every 2 hours, but I wasn't drinking. I wasn't drinking alcohol, but I was in a rural area here in New Mexico, and every 3 months or so, the city would run dry. There wouldn't be anything.
Oh,
and everybody would just, everybody would be driving all over town looking, calling. And I remember, building that tolerance. And I remember my anxiety would rise. I would feel agitated. I would feel irritable. And I remember that I couldn't sleep well for several nights. And just about the time that cycle was broken, there'd be a whole bunch of pot again. And it'd just kind of start all over again.
Right.
So what's your experience with tolerance?
I think that what that is you're not showing any kind of restraint. You don't need to smoke 5-10 bong hits in a row.
Okay, but people do it all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't need to when you can. The minute you do a bong hit, it's not going to hit you immediately. You got to wait a few, right? So if you do a couple bong hits and then wait an hour, then it would like totally like lower your tolerance level.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So now we're gonna get in. Now we're gonna get into. We're getting into the good stuff here, right? Okay. Now I need your opinion on these things, and there's not a right or a wrong answer. What about on the job smoking? Right? What about on-site smoking? Okay, look.
Depends on your job. It depends on what your boss says you can do.
Okay, many have, that's a fair answer. Many have noticed that cannabis consumption is becoming a problem in the workplace, and especially in the construction industry.
You can get hurt.
What do you think about that?
I think you can get hurt, man.
Okay, now.
And I smoked pot on the construction sites. But I just think you're not as careful. You're not as aware of everything that's going on, and you're dang sure not. Your reflexes aren't as quick.
Okay, so your awareness is not what it ought to be. Your reflexes, and that's why I had you on the show. Because you're an advocate, but you'll tell the truth. And you don't care, and I'm glad for that.
I know. And we can have all these construction workers. I can smoke weed all day and be fine. I'm sure you can. But I bet you'd be better if you didn't.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
I would almost bet money on that.
Yeah. So this is on-site smoking. Like this literally happened to me this week. This happened to me Monday. We're working at a construction site, right? And day laborers, and there's two companies, and so you've got like quote crazy homeless guy, right, that comes in to do day labor. And he's got his pot, right? And so like we get a break, and like he goes outside and he starts smoking pot. And you can tell when you're a laborer, when you go to these different jobs, you know how to read the supervisor. Mm-hmm. And I told this guy, I said, you know what? I said, if the supervisor comes out here and he catches you getting stoned, I was like, he's gonna send you home. And he's like, no, he can't do that anymore. He can't send me home anymore because it's legal. Yeah, but like
it has nothing to do with the policies of a business.
Yeah. So okay. So I would say that over time, those gray areas are going to have to be kind of more refined, right?
I don't think so. It's up to the boss.
Okay, well,
it's
yeah,
his
okay,
business. You're
yeah.
working for him. He tells you what you can and can't do
Okay.
when you're on his clock.
Now this really happened though. Crazy homeless guy. Okay, he comes in after getting stoned. We're working in a ceiling grid. We're supposed to be cutting out wires that are just for data and computer wires.
Yeah.
You know, the blue and the white. Crazy guy. He cuts the purple. He cuts the black.
Yeah.
He cuts the orange wires. He dismantles the security system, and he
cost that
dismantles
boss
the
money
heater.
because he was smoking weed.
Okay, so that is, what do we do with on-the-job smoking?
He's fired.
Yeah, he
That
should
easy.
be. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's if I was a boss.
Let's say you were the super. What would you do with
Hey,
homeless
but-
guy? Stoner guy gets up there
You know,
and clips the wires and
He's
ruins
fired.
everything.
You know, I mean, you give him one chance and then he's fired. Man, get off the site.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
want to smoke weed, go smoke weed. You want to work, go to work.
All right, so
Now,
you're
now,
saying that
if
those
you're
are
in a place-
kind of black and white issues.
Yeah,
then.
if you're in a place where you could paint, you know what I mean, and where you're not going to hurt nobody or yourself, and it's not dangerous, and the boss says it's okay if you smoke a joint, fine, you know.
But you better paint right.
Yeah.
You better not. You
Don't
better not,
spill the paint. You know?
Yeah, and you better know if they want the.
But anytime there's any kind of electrical current going through something, of course you got to be like aware of what's going on.
Yeah, and then here comes Stoner guy, and he's cutting the
sorry.
wires. Yeah. Because
My dad can fix it.
Yeah, because I've been on. I was on another job site, and the supervisor, he had one of those pens, the where you can't smell it, the pot pen.
Yeah.
And he was,
Those are good.
and he was cranking that thing, and he was running. He was running the bucket. The little the bobcat with the bucket on it, and I remember watching him, and like I was getting away from him, and he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you getting away?" He's like, "You think I'm gonna hit you? You think I'm gonna?" And I was like, I was just kind of leery. I was kind of leery about that because it was like, you know what? You're getting high in that piece of heavy machinery, and like I don't want my head caved in, And
Yeah.
so like people make mistakes, and they make a lot more mistakes when they're on the job and they're stoned, right?
Absolutely, I think so.
Okay, yeah.
And,
So
and I've gone this work baked. You know what I mean? And I would still say the same.
Yeah.
Not recently, but
yeah, of course. So, okay, should a person under the influence of marijuana really be operating heavy machinery?
no.
Okay, no. Okay, so that's
because you could hurt somebody else
Yeah.
or yourself.
Okay, yeah. So here's something too. Shouldn't an individual who's damaged property hurt himself or hurt others while under the influence of marijuana, like on the job site, be held accountable for his or her actions?
Do you mean criminally, or do you mean like by being fired?
Let's say both. What are the pluses and minuses of? Okay,
I
criminally, what do you think?
I mean,
There's no right or wrong.
if you kill somebody, absolutely, sure. That's involuntary manslaughter. You didn't mean to kill nobody, but you still did. Just because you don't know it's a felony doesn't make something not a felony.
So is there a difference between running heavy machinery and being in the bag or being drunk, caving in someone's head,
when
or
you're running heavy machinery? That's like having a big weapon.
Yeah,
It
but
turns
what
out,
about so should the penalties criminally be the same for if you're in the bag running heavy machinery and you mangle somebody because you're drunk?
What do you mean in the bag?
You're drunk. But say you're in the bobcat with the bucket and you're really stoned and you like hurt somebody. You don't kill them, but you mangle them. You mess them up.
Do you think it would be fair for the owner of that company to be held responsible? I think the person that did it should be responsible. And then the owner, have to get some of the backlash, of course.
Yeah, because he's gonna have to catch
He's
some of the hell, right?
He's going to catch it first. So I think there should be
Okay, yeah.
actions taken against the person that did it. Absolutely.
All right.
More than just being fired.
Okay, so shouldn't we be able to test someone for being under
Absolutely.
the influence of marijuana?
Absolutely.
Right? Now see, now I don't, being an evangelical, like I try not to judge people and
Policy is different than law.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great point. That's a great point. That's something to kind of explore, maybe another time. But okay, if a person wants to work an 8-hour shift, right, and he wants to work an 8-hour shift, and he wants to go to the bar, and or he wants to go to the packaged liquor store, and he wants to drink until 10 o'clock at night, and then go to sleep, and then get up in the morning and go to work the next day. Fine.
Is he still drunk?
Well, that's harder to tell, but but now there's this gray area where like we can't seem to control who's smoking on the job versus like it like
Yes, you can.
do you think but do
Piss
you
test.
but do you think but okay but I think that I think that in the future, in order to solve some of these gray areas, is that why can't we figure out a way to find out who is
Okay.
under the influence?
Are we speaking we as in society, or are we speaking we as in a business owner?
Well, let's say, let's say society, right? Let's say a society, because, okay, if you're drunk and you get in your car and you drive and you smash into somebody, you get a DWI.
Sure.
Okay, well, how does that apply with if you get really
You still
stoned?
can't, you still
get in
can't
your
drive
car
under the influence.
of
It's
pot.
still driving under the influence of it's not a narcotic anymore or nothing, but not
Yeah.
that it was, but I mean,
Yeah. So those are some problems, right? That.
sure. I mean,
But okay. But since.
it's a lot more lenient now than it used to be. I mean, but you used to be
Yeah,
like
because
if
I
you
have
had blood-
supervisors that do it, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it okay.
Okay, I agree. Yeah,
That
yeah.
goes back to just your environment. If you're
Yeah.
around it, doesn't make it okay to do it. Just
Because
it's
then you
there.
got stoner guy cutting wires and
Right.
frying the security,
And
right?
he might have a different job than you. So
Yeah.
his is a little easier.
Yeah,
His is
yeah.
telling you not to be stoned.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I've noticed within the last year that on the construction sites that like it's I wouldn't say it's a problem necessarily all of the time, but like it's popping up left and right all the and it used to not be that way. It was kind of a backroom thing. It was
Everyone
kind of
thinks just because it's legal that it's okay to do it on a job site, and that hasn't changed. For the most part, if you want a good job, you got to take a urine test, and you have to pass that drug test.
yeah.
And then if you get hurt, the first thing you do is you go take a piss test right then and there.
Yeah, I know a guy right at the labor company. He's got the CDL. He could be driving a truck for $30 an hour, right? He could make $30 an hour driving a potbelly truck. With the dirt in it, where you
Yeah.
you don't even have to get out of the truck. You make $30 an hour, but he can't pass the drug test because he can't quit smoking pot. So
Yes, he
he's
can.
he's at labor. So he's at labor
He can.
finance.
He just doesn't want to. There
Okay.
has to come a time in your life when no means no.
Okay, great point. Great point. Okay, now let's talk about what about we're filming this in an apartment. Let's talk about apartment smoking. The problem is not so much what people are doing in their own unit, but the smoke when people get stoned in apartments, it circulates through the HVAC, through the heating system.
That's just smell.
Yeah, but
That's kind of a stretch. I think, man, come on.
Well, okay, but
But
what about the guy that doesn't want to be stoner guy? What
Then
about the
buy
guy
him
that's
some Febreze, some
but
Ozium.
it isn't. But what about the guy that comes home? He's trying to quit doing drugs. He doesn't want to do that kind
you
of
could
stuff
try
anymore.
all you want.
And then he comes
Drug-
home, and you got stoner guy, and it's
Okay.
pumping through the thing, and your whole unit smells like pot. You pay rent. He pays rent. Why do you have to smell his pot? I mean,
What's the difference if people? I want to stop that one right there. 'cause
it's
I could-
all right. Get
what?
into it. We can
That's
get
just,
into
that's
it.
just being a weenie, Buy him some Ozium or some, Febreze. Come on, man.
But isn't that a double standard,
what?
though?
That's not really.
All right.
You know,
Okay.
I mean, what's the? I don't want to smell his burnt toast. What's the difference?
Yeah. That's the point of the show, right? It's here to stay. We
Right?
can't do anything
right.
about it.
What is the difference if it's his burnt toast or or his wife's terrible perfume that's all the way down the hall?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no difference. I mean, there has to be a little bit of like,
Decorum.
yeah, and there has to be a little bit of leniency with each other. We don't have to always be up each other's butt just to, for everything they do because we don't want to do it.
Yeah,
You know? If you don't like it, then go the other way.
Yeah,
You know what I
Or
mean?
don't live in an apartment.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Because
There's-
look, it's happened to me. It's happened to several of my
if you're not
friends.
strong enough to quit doing drugs just because you smell it, man, you got a worse problem than you think you do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I still think that if you pay rent, you're a tenant, you abide by the rules, that you should come into your unit and it's a big problem in California when you go to a hotel. You stayed in a hotel.
Yeah, but
Come on.
Are you paying rent? Are you paying rent in the air? Or are you paying rent on the walls?
Well, that's debatable, right?
You know what I mean? But
I mean,
regardless, outside of these walls, you're not paying nothing.
yeah.
So
So your solution is quit being a weenie.
yeah,
All right. Well, that's why we're talking about
There
it.
has to be a line drawn where it's like, oh my, really, dude? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Okay. All right.
You know?
So some of that's hyperventilating. Some of that's being
It's
just ridiculous.
It's like being hypersensitive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Yeah. Some of that's maybe you're just kind of turning into an old man.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want I wouldn't want to see people come into my, doing rails with their door open or nothing, But if I did, I wouldn't say nothing because it's inside there. That's none of my business. We need to not get in each other's bubble.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry
yeah.
if some things escape out. It's called pollution. We don't say
Yeah.
nothing about there's a bigger problem, with all the
The
companies. I mean, even if I spilled fentanyl in someone's house, I wouldn't say nothing, because it's not my place. Even if I don't like the smell, even though it killed my daughter, it's still not my place. And there has to be a line drawn where we're not infringing on another person.
Okay. All right.
I guess that's how I'd rather say
Yeah.
it.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good. Now we got our last point. Okay. So let's attempt to understand. We've talked about this.
Sure.
Let's attempt to understand midlife crisis, low
I
testosterone.
don't know. My whole life's been a crisis. I don't know.
All right. But we've got midlife crisis. We've got low testosterone, and we've got just plain stupid. Right.
Yeah.
Now, Timothy Leary alluded that LSD was a drug in which one graduated from fairly early in life, right? So why do so many middle-aged men seem to struggle with just simply what old-timers would say, just simply quit getting stoned, quit taking 10 bong hits every 6 hours, and just grow up, accept your responsibilities, and leave this marijuana stuff behind?
I mean, because it's nice sometimes. Because it's delicious sometimes,
To smoke pot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah.
If you're having a high stress day and there's nothing, you don't want to take pharmaceutical drugs, why couldn't you just smoke a couple of hits off a joint or do a bong hit and then relax? And
Yeah.
you're able to let it go.
Well, people do it with wine, right?
Yeah, right.
People do it with So you're stressing moderation.
Moderate, absolutely.
Because I had
In
this
anything.
look, I had this conversation with an individual this week, and he said one of my pet peeves, he says, is I see these guys, not you, not anybody that we know. This guy lives in California. He says, I see these guys, he said they're 50 years old, they're living with mom in the basement. He said, and they're playing video games all day and they're spending all their money on pot. He's like, doesn't there come a time in an individual's life where it's time to put down the pot and
What's the key word there?
Yeah.
Individual.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Sure they should. That's an opinion.
Yeah.
But who are we to tell someone else what they should do with their life like that?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, is it fair to say that once a man enters midlife, right, his testosterone drops
I have no idea.
and he smokes pot? But he smokes pot, his ambition and his productivity is severely hindered. I know people.
But don't
who,
you think that their ambition and their drive was already like way gone long before they got to 50?
But yeah, but it can't. But it can't help having that on top of it if it's not done in moderation. Won't it hinder it? Won't it cripple it? Won't it keep them stuck? You know, in nostalgia.
Is it going to make you like, make you like get up and want to change your life all of a sudden? Probably not. But your life, but your life's already half over. I mean, I think the bigger thing is the motivation in life. We've been jaded so hard by it so much. I mean, by the time we're 50, that man, we're not driven like we were when we were 21. We're going to go out and become something.
Yeah.
I don't know one 50-year-old it is. I'm sure there are out there, and more power to them. And
yeah,
I'd like to be that guy, but I mean, it's hard enough just to get up every day, be a better person, and make it out the door and try to help somebody.
Yeah. So to conclude on that, your final thoughts on the fact that marijuana is here to stay. Where do we go from here, Rocky? I mean, it's here. It's not going anywhere. How do we make the world a better place with what we have to work with?
By not nitpicking every little tiny thing that someone else does with their body or their life or their mind. Yeah, we can give them try to help them, but I mean, we don't have to judge them and say that we're better than them.
Yeah, right.
We don't have to force our bubble into theirs.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well,
if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Marijuana is here to stay.
We want to lead them. We want to help them. We want to do this, and in order to do that, they have to be able to accept guidance. But there's a fine line between control and guidance.
Right. Right. Well, we want to thank you tonight. We've been talking about some difficult issues. I want to thank Brother Corey for his help on the phone, talking with me, kind of telling me some facts about pot and so forth. I want to thank Brother Rocky.
My pleasure.
You're going to see more of Rocky. We're going to be putting together some of the difficult conversations that secular society needs to hear, and evangelicals as well. God bless you, and thank you.
Post everything in the comments if you don't agree or do agree.